Hello and welcome to the Lessons Unlocked podcast. I'm your host, Colleen McCracken. I've been looking for ways to increase music education accessibility, and I believe that this podcast can make a difference. The Lessons Unlocked podcast uses a virtual platform to engage with student musicians through masterclass style instruction. Students may submit a recording of their playing for in-depth feedback to be shared with all listeners. This way, students who submit can get feedback, and any other student with access to the podcast can learn from the masterclass. There's also a Q&A section to the podcast when we have questions, so please submit any questions that come up for you. Little update. We are now on Patreon. If you've been looking for more ways to engage with and support the podcast, you can now do so there. I will share a link in the description. The name to know for this episode is Jean-Pierre Rampal. Jean-Pierre Rampal was a French flutist whose artistry transformed the flute from a primarily orchestral instrument into one of the most celebrated solo voices in classical music. Widely regarded as the leading flutist of the 20th century, Rampal helped to revive interest in the instrument on the international concert stage and inspired generations of performers through his virtuosity, musicianship, and extensive recordings. Born on January 7, 1922 in Marseille, Rampal grew up in a musical family. His father, Joseph Rampal, was a distinguished flutist and professor who introduced him to the instrument. Although he showed considerable talent as a young musician, Rampal initially pursued medicine and studied at medical school in Marseille. During World War II, however, he was drafted for compulsory labor under the German occupation. Rather than comply, he fled to Paris, where he enrolled at the Paris Conservatory. After only a few months of study, he won the institution's premier flute prize, effectively launching his professional musical career. Following the war, Rampal quickly established himself as an exceptional performer. He performed throughout Europe and became known for his warm tone, effortless technique, and expressive style. He served as principal flutist of the Paris Opera and later devoted himself primarily to solo and chamber music. In 1945, he co-founded the French Wind Quintet, and in 1953, he founded the Baroque Ensemble of Paris, reflecting his lifelong commitment to chamber music and the revival of Baroque repertoire. Rampal's greatest achievement was elevating the flute to a position comparable to that of the violin or piano as a solo concert instrument. Before his rise to international fame, flute recitals were relatively uncommon. Through extensive touring, groundbreaking recordings, and charismatic performances, he demonstrated the instrument's expressive and technical possibilities to audiences worldwide. His repertoire ranged from Baroque masterpieces by Bach, Telemann, and Vivaldi to contemporary works written specifically for him. Composers including Francis Poulenc, André Jolivet, Claude Bolling, and many others composed or premiered important flute works with Rampal as their inspiration or collaborator. A prolific recording artist, Rampal made hundreds of recordings and became one of the most recorded classical instrumentalists in history. In addition to performing, he taught at the Paris Conservatory, conducted orchestras, edited musical scores, and mentored many younger flutists. Rampal received numerous honors during his lifetime, including high distinctions from the French government and international recognition for his contributions to music. He died in Paris on May 20, 2000, at the age of 78. His legacy endures through his recordings, his students, and the continued prominence of the flute as a solo instrument. Today, he is remembered as the central figure of the 20th century flute renaissance and one of the most influential flutists in history. The piece of the week is Suite for Flute and Jazz Piano Trio by Claude Bolling. Born in Cannes, France in 1930, Claude Bolling spent most of his life in Paris. A remarkably gifted pianist from an early age, he was strongly influenced by jazz legends such as Fats Waller and Duke Ellington. During the German occupation of France in World War II, Bolling continued to pursue his passion in secret, earning recognition in informal underground jazz circles. After the war, as American jazz musicians flocked to Paris, he emerged as one of France's leading jazz pianists, building an acclaimed career as both a performer and recording artist. His exceptional talents as a pianist, composer, and arranger made him a natural bridge between the worlds of jazz and classical music. In 1973, Bolling composed his celebrated Suite for Flute and Jazz Piano Trio for flutist Jean-Pierre Rampal. Blending the structure and style of Baroque music with the rhythms and harmonies of jazz, the work became an international success. It remained at the top of the U.S. classical charts for 2 years and enjoyed an extraordinary run on the Billboard charts for nearly a decade. The suite's movements draw inspiration from various dance forms while showcasing a wide range of moods and musical character. Following the success of his collaboration with Rampal, Bolling partnered with numerous artists across diverse musical genres and created works honoring many influential musicians. Bowling passed away in December of 2020, leaving behind a legacy as one of the most innovative and versatile musicians of his generation. I encourage you to listen to Claude Bowling's Suite for Flute and Jazz Piano Trio recorded by Jean-Pierre, Rampal, and friends after we finish out this episode. The organization highlight for this episode is the Flute Society of Greater Philadelphia. The Flute Society of Greater Philadelphia is a nonprofit organization dedicated to serving professional, student, and amateur flutists through the local, regional, national, and international flute communities. The society promotes the art and enjoyment of flute playing through a wide range of educational and performance opportunities, including masterclasses, competitions, clinics, recitals, classes, and flute choir events. In addition to fostering artistic growth, the organization provides resources for teachers, students, and performers while maintaining an active calendar of events that encourages community engagement and collaboration among flutists of all ages and experience levels. Through its membership programs and outreach activities, the Flute Society of Greater Philadelphia strives to create a vibrant and supportive environment where flute enthusiasts can learn, perform, and connect with one another. I will provide a link in the description for you to learn more about the Flute Society of Greater Philadelphia down below. Now let's get into the masterclass. So today we have a performance by Denise from North Carolina, who's performing Gluck's Dance of the Blessed Spirits. Denise, take it away. Thank you so much for that, Denise. That was gorgeous. I love this piece and I'm really grateful that you sent it in. So again, thank you. And to our listeners, wherever you are, if it's safe to do so, go ahead and give Denise a big round of applause. Now let's break it down. Nice. And holy cow, that is so much to do in one breath. And you're doing it very well. But I am going to suggest that we add some of the breaths written in this music just to give it more of a sense of levity. And I feel like I can hear you straining a little bit toward the end of this massive phrase that you've created. And I think that we're going to have more fun playing it, and we're going to have a bit more effective of a performance if we allow ourselves to breathe a bit more. So I would go ahead and insert the breaths that are written in the music that you sent me. Maybe omit one maximum, but I would say take at least 2 breaths in that first section before the repeat. And I would definitely breathe before you go ahead and repeat. Just to sort of mark that, okay, we're sure it's a continuous idea, but hey, new idea, even though it's the same idea. I hope that makes sense. We want the audience to know that, okay, that is something. What I've just completed is a thought. I have a sentence for you, and now we're going on to the next sentence. Gorgeous playing. I think that we can add a little bit more nuance, and I think the breaths are going to help us do that. So once we go ahead and insert those breaths as written in the music that you sent me, I would really play into them to make them sound more natural. I think that you have this musical idea of this long continuous line, which is gorgeous, but I think it would be a little bit more interesting to the listener if we break that down and add more nuance. So what I mean by that is, for example, in the 3rd and 4th bars, we have ba-da-da-da-ba-da-da. Forgive my singing. Ba-da-da-ba. Like really giving us the sense of anticipation, because we're on an E, but an F sounds more resolute, and it's like, yeah, I'm playing with you guys, I'm in control, right? So ba da 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 da. Don't cut the E as short as I just did. Da da da. I would almost take little pauses, just very subtle little pauses, and think about you're really stringing the audience along, and you're not in a rush. The audience isn't going anywhere. They are seated. They're listening to you, and you can have all the fun you want with this piece and really dive into the nuance. I really love what you did there with that C, where you started out with no vibrato and then sort of snuck it in and then brought it to the forefront of our attention. That was gorgeous growth and a gorgeous way to keep the audience engaged when we're holding long notes like this. Really gorgeous playing. I would encourage you on the C in measure 22, 21, in measure 20, of course it ends in measure 21, to really take as much time as you want to decrescendo that and have it taper out really nicely. You showed us your gorgeous taper at the very end of the work when we listened to your full recording, and So I know that you can do this. And then take a moment before starting the ba-da-da-dum-ba. Oh my God, my voice cracked. That's hilarious. Ba-da-da-dum-ba. I think it's going to let us know that kind of the first big peak, because we had that big forte, our first sort of peak of the work has passed, and we're finishing out that idea, and now we're going to start a new idea, even if it feels a bit repetitive, right? Another thing, in general, I'm noticing these really long phrases, right? And I'm thinking we're in the 1700s with this. So we want to lean less into long lyrical singing lines and more into this style of speaking and like shorter sentences. That's at least something that was explained to me at one point and really helped me understand this time period a little bit better. We're not, the flute is not the same as, you know, a soprano singing an aria. We're not doing these long sustained big things. We're doing these subtle, short, yet very meaningful moments, and they're sort of all spliced together. So I want you to think of it that way, and maybe that will help you with communicating to the audience a little bit more of these little details, and it might even keep the piece a little bit more interesting for you. Really, really gorgeous. I think in measure 30, we should lean into the D and come away on the C sharp. So I'm looking for sort of like hairpin phrasing. So we're going to grow in measure 29, leading to the D, and then we're going to have like a nice full, within reason, we are at a piano dynamic, but a nice full sound on the D, and then we're going to decrescendo and come away with the C sharp. So we have this sort of complete thought in just these two measures. So it sounds to me like you are sort of holding yourself back to try to honor that we are technically still in a piano dynamic. And I am going to say that I think that you have more room to grow than you realize. I think that piano here is more of an indication of the energy and the color and the feel that we're going for, and less of a you need to keep every note at the exact same dynamic, which sometimes is the case, right? So it's good to be able to have that skill. But I think in this case, we can have a little bit more variety within our realm of piano. I also want to just share that I think, so everyone can always benefit from practicing with a metronome, but just telling someone, hey, make sure you're working on this with a metronome is not always the best advice because it's boring. So there are a few more interesting ways to kind of spice up basically metronome work without just, turning on your Dr. beat and having this blaring sound come at you at a, perfectly even pace. I think maybe look up on YouTube. You can find different beats to play along with that are a lot more interesting. So you can find like a cool, like a Latin drum beat to play along with. And that will just make practicing for the sake of rhythmic integrity and basically for metronome work a little bit more interesting than just the Dr. beat. So again, just check out YouTube, look up, the tempo you want and the style you want. And if you're not sure what style you want, just look up the tempo and drum beats and have some fun exploring. I think that can be a lot more engaging than just our standard metronome work. Nice. Make sure that we're counting very carefully. And also, I think that on these dotted half notes, measures 44 and it looks like 46, let's do what we were doing earlier on that high C that was gorgeous, where we're starting out with little to no vibrato and then building with the note and also increasing the volume at the same time. That's going to give us a really great effect. And make sure that we're leading to the F sharp and the G sharp respectively, so that it's not just ba-dee-dee. We want ba-dee-dee-dee. See how the second one just feels a little bit more convincing? I think that that's going to be the move for that section. So here we have this short idea that's repeated 3 times. So we want to make each time a little bit different, and we want to make sure that the audience knows that we have these short ideas that are repeating and not as much connecting them. So I would want to hear more of a ba-da-da-da-dum, ba-dee-dum, ba-da-da-da-dum, ba-dee-dum, ba-da-da-da-dum, ba-da. So what I'm doing is I'm adding a little bit of space, a little bit of bounce, and I'm also thinking I feel like you're honoring the dynamics very literally, which is a very good ability to have. I so often catch myself completely just doing my own thing. So I'm very proud of you for holding tight to what the music says. But I think it's going to be more interesting if the first time we have this idea at measure 48, we are in fact piano, and then the next time we have it in 49 and 50 to bump it up to mezzo piano, and then the next time mezzo forte, and then grow into that forte. So we have this sort of build, and that's going to keep the audience very engaged. It's going to keep things interesting. And then ba da 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 dee dum. Okay, let's listen. Okay, so I hinted at this just moments ago in my little singing moment. I would add some rubato here, and I would slow down a little bit. So a retard could be very useful. Ba-da-dee-da-dum. I think that could be very effective and powerful. So I would consider that. Just a reminder, all of my little thoughts are just things to consider. There's no necessarily like right or wrong here. You're the musician, so take what feels right to you and leave what doesn't. Gorgeous taper at the end. That takes a lot of control. So congratulations on that. And congratulations on this performance and for sending this in. It takes a lot of courage to send in your performance and your music that you've worked on to a stranger on the internet to try to help you out. So especially knowing that this is going to be shared publicly, it takes a lot of courage. So I want to honor that and to thank you for having that courage and for sending this over to us. I really appreciate it. People are going to learn so much from your performance. There's so many great things happening and some things to work on as well that I think you could consider. But again, take what resonates and what doesn't. You can go ahead and leave. There are no flute police, as we said in another episode. The flute police will not come get you. They don't exist. So everyone, wherever you are, if you want to give another round of applause to Denise from North Carolina, thank you so much. All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode of the Lessons Unlocked podcast. Huge thanks to our performer of the day, Denise from North Carolina, and to all of you for continuing to be a part of this community. As you head out into your week, I encourage you to listen to Suite for Flute and Jazz Piano Trio by Claude Bowling. And if you're enjoying the podcast, be sure to follow and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and connect with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming episodes. And of course, thank you to all the music educators who are working hard to make music accessible and meaningful for their students. I'll be back soon with more. Until then, happy practicing and bye for now.